그 안에 뭐 있어요?
응?
거기에 뭐 있냐고요.
아니,
근데 왜 봐요?
그냥 좀 봤다.
Growing up as a child, I would rarely find myself delving into pieces of film one would consider truly dark. I suppose it is for this reason that I only recently discovered the works of Bong Joon-ho, a South Korean filmmaker known primarily for his work on films such as Auteur, Snowpiercer, and most recently Parasite. If I could only use one word to describe his works, I think dark would come to mind first. But how does he achieve this style, and what exactly separates Joon-ho's work from other auteurs? In order to understand Bong Joon-ho's style, I think it's important to look back at his early childhood. Growing up in Seoul, South Korea, his relatives noticed that from a very young age, he took a great interest in wealth disparity, bringing his poorer school friends home to eat with. Later in his life, he and several other students at Yonsei University continued to challenge this wealth gap, volunteering to farm and even teach in rural villages during summer vacations. Along with an interest in social issues, Bong also grew up planning to become a director, starting a filmmaking club at university and soon moving on to create his first full-length feature film, Barking Dogs Never Bite. Unfortunately, this film only sold 100,000 tickets, so Bong often had to film wedding videos in his spare time to make a living. It wasn't until he would create his second film, Memories of Murder, that he would have his first hit, soon gaining quite a reputation in South Korea. His most recent project, Parasite, saw commercial success unlike any of his other films, and went on to be the first South Korean film to receive Academy Award nominations, and the first non-English speaking film to win Best Picture at the Oscars. So just what makes Joon-ho's style unique from other filmmakers? Well, looking through his collection, most of his films fall under the genre of thriller, dark comedy, or horror, or absolutely heartbreaking. But I also believe that placing these movies into one genre does not do them justice, because one of Joon-ho's favourite directing techniques is to have his movies rapidly shift style and mood several times within its duration. His films are riddled with twists and turns, and he jerks your emotions around so violently that you often struggle to determine whether you should be laughing or shielding your eyes in horror. Most of his movies, especially more recent ones, also cover quite serious social issues, such as chemical waste in The Host, the cruelty of the meat industry in Auteur, and social classing in Snowpiercer. While Joon-ho has stated that he does not consider himself an activist, his movies shed light on and at times satirize topical issues, especially those most prominent in South Korea. His films often follow a main cast of unlikable or flawed characters, making his protagonists seem much more human through greed, desperation, or pure incapability. Despite this, they are also often backed by morals, creating characters as three-dimensional as the topics they represent. The scenarios he places his characters in are often extremely tense, as it's clear that at any moment, everything could turn on its head in an instant. As a viewer, it makes you feel extremely uneasy, no matter if you sympathize with the characters or not, because Bong does not hold back in putting an abrupt end to a protagonist's life. Looking back on his collection, you can also notice that his characters are often played by recurring actors, most notably Sang-Hun, whom many would note to have a great actor-director collaboration with Joon-ho. Other featured actors include Bong, Lee Jung-un, and Kim Roy-ha. Setting plays an extremely important role in many of Joon-ho's movies, with most of his films being centered around a select few areas, generally in urban environments. In Parasite, many critics highlighted this importance, with reporter Choe Sang-Hun going as far to say that the streets of Seoul are as much a character as the actors themselves. Bong's relationship with the city of Seoul at a young age definitely shows in Parasite, and this connection to setting is just as prominent in many of his other works. In Snowpiercer, for example, almost the entire film takes place on the aforementioned train, the Snowpiercer. This limiting, claustrophobic setting establishes that this has now become the lives of its passengers, and only when the cycle is broken are we given a deeper look at the outside world. By limiting the setting to a select few areas, the audience is able to familiarize with the character's environment and experience the story from a personal perspective. Like many other auteurs, we can recognize common filming techniques that Joon-ho often uses in his works, such as the use of long shots, still frames, and montage. But a much more subtle technique that he makes use of is recycling shots. Many moments will often be reflective of previous ones, especially to establish irony or a change of tone. Out of all of the elements that Bong Joon-ho uses effectively, however, I think one that he has most certainly mastered is the use of space. Every scene is not only interesting to look at as a viewer, but can in many cases demonstrate a lot about the characters involved. Many of his scenes like to divert the viewer's focus away from the action into the background, where important or comedic events can often occur. By teaching the viewer to constantly divert their focus, it leads us to discover things before they are even relevant. It also teaches an important lesson that as a director, you cannot take any space in your scene for granted. Joon-ho masterfully uses space to its fullest potential, creating an interesting shot that never gets boring to watch. While as a director, he may not have the grandest collection of films under his belt, Bong Joon-ho has certainly cemented himself in the film industry as a masterful auteur, and one that I will be looking out for in the future.